we don't want the character to move to the right all the time. This is a little silly. Instead, we would like to apply some gravity to it. We could hard code it in there in our velocity, but instead we're going to store that gravity in a variable. And we're not going to define that variable in physics process. When you define a variable here, this variable only exists in that function, and you can't access it in other functions that we will add later. So instead, select your velocity here, press Ctrl X to cut it, then you want to paste it outside the physics process function. And you will see that you don't have an error. It's okay to use it in your move and slide call here. Our velocity is going to be a vector2 of length 0 by default. So by default, the character will not move. Then we will add some variables to update that velocity every frame. So we will create a new one called gravity. And this one is going to be a decimal value. The gravity is just going to be applied on the vertical axis in our game. And it's an acceleration, a vertical acceleration. So let's say 3000. I'm going to add a .0 at the end to tell Godot that this is a decimal value that I want and not an integer, not a whole number. So we're going to have that, the gravity. And what we can do here is in our physics process function, we're going to add the acceleration, our gravity here, to our velocity's y component. So you do velocity.y, and to add to it, instead of using the equal sign, you can do plus equal. This is a shorthand for add to what's on the left here. Add gravity times delta. Delta is a value that the engine is going to give us on every tick in that physics process function. It represents the time elapsed since the previous frame. So you want to use that delta value to make your code frame rate independent. In other words, if the game slows down, the character should still move at the same speed. If someone has a slow computer, or a certain scene is a bit heavy, you don't know what's happening, you want the movement of the character to be constant. So you can do it with the delta value here. One technical detail is that your velocity is a vector that represents a speed, so a certain amount of pixels you want to move per second in a given direction. So to get a motion, the amount of pixels that we want to move the character in one frame, we need to multiply that velocity by that delta time. But the engine does it for us in the move and slide method. This is why we're not multiplying our velocity by delta. Okay, so this will make the character move down. You can press F6 to play the scene and see your character fall. Now we can make our gravity configurable. That would be the next step. To do so, add the export keyword before your variable. And once you've done so, you will see the gravity appear on the right in the inspector if you have the player selected here. So then you can modify the gravity. Say we're going to make it very small, 500 pixels per second squared, press F6, and now the character will slowly fall. And you can see that our gravity has some kind of acceleration to it.